The sun had just begun to sink behind the jagged ridges of the Arizona desert, painting the sky in strokes of amber and rose, when the lone rider appeared on the horizon. His name was Ethan Cole, a quiet rancher whose heart had long grown weary of war, loss, and the endless emptiness of the frontier. His horses hooves stirred the dust of the trail as he rode toward the valley below, unaware that destiny was waiting for him in the shape of a woman he had never met. The small border town of Silver Creek was a place of barter and broken dreams, where cowboys came for whiskey and whispers. Ethan was there to buy lumber for his ranch, but as fate would have it, he would end up buying something far more precious, something no amount of gold could measure, a chance to love again. When he arrived, the town square was restless. A crowd had gathered near the old trading post, and voices rose like the wind before a storm. Ethan dismounted, his blue eyes narrowing beneath the brim of his hat. He heard the words before he saw her, an Apache woman, being sold off by a group of rough men who called themselves traders. She stood proud despite the ropes around her wrists, her dark hair catching the light like woven silk, her eyes fierce, defiant, filled with both pain and fire. The townsfolk muttered cruel things, some laughing, some silent, but none dared step forward. To them, she was property. To Ethan, she was human, and somehow, in that first moment, she felt familiar, as if their souls had known each other long before this dusty day. Ethan's jaw clenched. He could still remember the battles, when men like him were told the Apache were enemies. Yet standing before him was no enemy, only a woman whose dignity shone brighter than the dying sun. He asked the price in a voice that cut through the noise. The traders sneered, thinking him a fool, but he tossed them the silver he'd saved for lumber. The rope was handed over, the crowd dispersed, and the woman, silent, watchful, stood free but trembling. Ethan didn't touch her. He simply said, quietly, "You're safe now." That night, he gave her food, water, and a blanket by the fire outside his cabin. She didn't speak English, not fully, but her name came softly when he asked, Ayana, meaning eternal blossom. Her voice was low and cautious, yet each word held power. Ethan spoke gently, as one might to calm a wild horse. He told her she could leave if she wished, that she owed him nothing. But she didn't leave. She stayed, sitting near the flames, eyes watching him with curiosity and confusion. Somewhere between the rustle of the wind and the crackle of the fire, something fragile began to take root, trust. The next morning, Ethan woke to find her standing by the stream behind the cabin, washing her hands in the cold water. For the first time, she smiled, a small, fleeting curve of her lips that made the entire world fall silent. He felt something stir deep inside him, something he thought he'd buried with the woman he once lost years ago. Ayana helped him feed the horses that day. She didn't need to, yet she did. Her movements were graceful, her silence peaceful. Every glance, every quiet breath between them was a language of its own. As the days passed, she began to laugh softly when he tried to speak her words, his accent clumsy, his effort sincere. He taught her small English phrases, and she taught him the songs of her people, songs that carried the heartbeat of the earth itself. In the evenings, they would sit by the fire, and Ethan would tell stories of his past, the war, the loneliness, the regrets, and she would listen with eyes that saw deeper than pity. She understood pain. She had lived it too. But where Ethan's heart had hardened, hers still carried hope. She began to teach him what it meant to see the world not through fear, but through forgiveness. Then, one stormy night, thunder rolled over the valley, and Ayana woke from a nightmare, crying out words he couldn't understand. Ethan rushed to her, placing his hands gently on her shoulders until her trembling eased. In that closeness, in that moment of shared vulnerability, something sacred passed between them, a promise unspoken. He didn't kiss her, didn't claim her, only whispered, "You're safe. Always." She pressed her forehead to his chest and breathed, for the first time in years, without fear. The following dawn broke clean and golden. The rain had washed the desert anew. Ayana walked outside wrapped in Ethan's old blanket and watched the horizon. She turned to him, her voice soft but steady, and said, "You buy me, but no owner. You free me. You kind. My people, they say, when men give freedom, he give heart." Ethan's throat tightened. He didn't know what to say, so he just nodded, eyes glistening. Later that day, an old preacher passing through town stopped by the ranch seeking water. He spoke to Ethan, then looked at Ayana and smiled kindly. When he realized they cared for each other, he said he could bless their union if they wished. Ethan hesitated, but Ayanna reached out, taking his hand with calm certainty. She looked into his eyes, and for the first time, spoke clearly in English, "I stay. I choose you." Under that vast desert sky, the preacher whispered his words, and the wind carried them away into the mountains. There were no rings, no fine dresses, just two souls scarred by the world, finding light again in each other's arms. Ethan knew that the woman he'd met as a stranger, rescued out of compassion, had become the heartbeat of his life. And though the West was still wild and cruel, there was peace now, here, on this small piece of earth where love had finally taken root. And as the camera of imagination slowly pulls back, dust shimmering, sunlight spilling over their cabin, you, listener, can almost hear the gentle chords of hope rising like the dawn. Because love, even in the roughest land, always finds its way. Narrator tone softens. If this story touched your heart, if you believe love and courage can still bloom in the hardest places, then make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and stay with us for more powerful Wild West stories that remind us what it truly means to be human.